Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Hingle McCringleberry, and welcome to Channel 18 News. Construction of the Alaskan Pipeline is now picking up steam. Approved in January, the project officially began construction earlier this year despite massive protests from conservationists. However, the Alaskan Pipeline will serve the country by providing an alternative supply of oil that the United States so desperately needs after the oil shortage. Energy is now becoming a global issue, and live at the International Energy Agency's headquarters in Paris, for more information we bring in field correspondent Jim McLewis. McLewis, hello. Well, I guess we'll have to bring in our other field correspondent, Tristan Takanawa. Over to you, Tristan.
Thanks, Hengel. The International Energy Agency is a new organization dedicating itself to energy security and environmental awareness. Involvement is swiftly growing, with over 20 countries as members. In wake of the oil embargo last year by the OPEC, the IEA has a lot of work to do, Hengel.
For our viewers at home, can you explain what OPEC is?
Of course, Hengel. OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is a group of countries primarily Middle Eastern with a few from South America. Their goal is to stabilize oil prices on the world market and unify the oil policies within their countries in order to protect it.
And why did they impose this embargo?
Last year, when Syria and Egypt attacked Israel, President Nixon worried of Soviet troops entering the battle. So he sent $2 billion worth of war munitions to Israelis in order to contain communism. OPEC, remember, is mainly Middle Eastern countries that harbor animosity towards Israel. OPEC was not happy with the U.S. support of Israel and in response put an embargo on the U.S. In addition to the embargo, OPEC members lowered their production, lowering the amount of oil on the world market.
That's field correspondent Tristan Takanawa on the scene. For a closer look at the effects of all this oil mumbo-jumbo, here's a look at the weather with political climate weatherman Sonny Raindrop.
Thanks, Hinkle. Watch out, folks. We are in the midst of a teeth-chattering economic standstill. Grab your jackets because a blizzard of oil shortages is coming our way. With the oil embargo stopping the flow of oil across the Atlantic, a rigid Arctic blast is hitting the East Coast and sweeping inland, freezing production to a virtual stop. After World War II, a torrential downpour of jubilation drenched the nation in eagerness, thus the baby boom of the 50s. Now those babies are growing up, and there's been an increase in teenagers in the workforce, as well as an increase in women, and production rates are at an all-time low. On top of that, during Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency, instead of concentrating spending on national defense or his Great Society programs, he spent money on both of them. Without increasing taxes, there was nothing to finance those expenses, so as Johnson pumped more and more money into circulation, the tide of inflation began to swell. Well, now, boys and girls, high tide has come, and it's flooding the country with inflation. Oil prices have skyrocketed, not only due to the lack of oil on the market, but because of inflation. With each dollar being worth less, prices have to be increased in order for the oil companies to get their money's worth. Mother Nature has lost her temper, Hingle. The staggering cold of stagnation, plus the fearsome winds of inflation, create the whopper of a storm, stagflation.
Thanks, Sonny. That sounds nasty. We'll be back after this word from your local service provider. Welcome back. Today marks the anniversary of the Saturday Night Massacre. For more information, we bring in field correspondent Dave E. Do you know anything about the Watergate scandal, Dave?
No.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. And now we have an extremely exclusive interview with none other than John Dean III, deeply involved in the Watergate scandal.
Aw, you little scoundrel. No, stop that. Get in here.
How you doing, John?
Good. How you been, Hingle?
Good. So this Watergate scandal, what was it exactly?
Well, the Watergate scandal was the event in which President Nixon's men were caught in the Democratic National Committee's headquarters in the Watergate complex in Washington, and Nixon's subsequent attempted cover-up of the incident. They were trying to bug the phone lines with mics so that we, the Republicans, could eavesdrop on them.
What was your involvement with the creep?
What'd you just call me?
Hey! No, creep! As in the committee to re-elect the president, not the slur.
Oh, okay. Of course. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
They were a fundraising organization dedicated to helping Nixon get re-elected, but they were the main conspirators behind the scandal.
Oh, okay. Well, at the time, I was on the White House Council and met with the head of CREEP to devise a plan to eavesdrop on the Democrats. The plan was to have members of CREEP wiretap phones and steal secret documents of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. When the burglars were caught on our second break-in, I destroyed the evidence in an attempt to cover up any wrongdoing by me or the White House.
But in your testimony before the Senate, you incriminated not only Nixon, but yourself in the scandal. Why did you do that?
Nixon denied my request of immunity of prosecution, so I had to bring him down with me.
So why did Gerald Ford become president instead of Vice President Spiro Agnew?
Well, although the 25th Amendment states that in case of removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president, Spiro was charged with bribery and fraud that occurred during his time as the governor of Maryland. Therefore, he was forced to resign as well. It was unrelated to the Watergate scandal. So then, Gerald Ford instead took over the presidency.
Okay, thanks, John.
You got it, Hingle!
Now we have on the phone someone whose voice you might recognize. We were able to get a hold of the head of the prosecution, Archibald Cox. How you doing, Archie?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing? I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. So, what's all this Watergate business? You were deeply involved with the scandal, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was in charge of prosecuting Nixon for attempted cover-up of the Republican spies entering the Democratic headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. However, Nixon, in his attempt to cover up, ordered his subordinates to fire me so as to prevent his indictment.
This was the Saturday Night Massacre.
Yes, two of the men he ordered to fire me stepped down in protest, but eventually he was able to get one of his lackeys to get rid of it.
And a huge piece of incriminating evidence was the smoking gun tape. Can you describe what that is?
It's the tape of Nixon in the White House talking about covering up the Watergate scandal. Nixon handed in the tapes, but with large chunks and pieces of it missing. He only was forced to hand in a complete tape after the Supreme Court ordered.
Let's play some of that tape, shall we?
On the investigation, the Democratic break-in thing, we're back in the problem area because the FBI is not under control because Gray doesn't exactly know how to control us. And their investigation is now leading into some productive areas because they've been able to trace the money, not through the money itself, but through the bank, sources, the banker stuff, and it goes some directions we don't want it to go. Also, there have been some things like an informant came in off the street to the FBI in Miami with a photographer who has a friend who's a photographer who developed some films for this guy Parker. And the films had pictures of Democratic National Committee letterhead documents. So there's things like that that are filtering in. Mitchell came up with yesterday, and John Dean analyzed very carefully last night and concurs now with Mitchell's recommendation that the only way to solve this, and we're set up beautifully to do it, the only network that paid any attention to last night was NBC, who did a massive story on the Cuban thing and all. That the way to handle are doing. Given this, he will then have the basis. He'll call Mark Felt in, and the two of them, and Mark Felt wants to cooperate because he's ambitious.
Can you explain the significance of that tape?
Up to that point, there had been no concrete evidence to prosecute Nixon for his involvement in the conspiracy. However, after his conversation with H.R. Haldeman was revealed to have been reported, everything changed.
And eventually Nixon was taken out of office, right?
Well, not quite. Nixon knew he was going to be impeached, so he resigned and was succeeded by Gerald Ford.
Thanks, Archie. We're almost out of time. Here's a sneak peek of tomorrow's broadcast when we report on kids after their parents see their performance task grades. That's it for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Channel 18 News. I'm your host, Hingle McCringleberry.
You're supposed to say, how you doing, John?
Alaskan Pipeline is now. Dave, please. Into the Alaskan Pipeline. Dave, please.
Dave, if he's not looking into the sensor. With the oil embargo.
That would be perfect. Good.
Stop. Should I say something? Call me a scout.
Scoundrel. Dave, how do you...
Say scoundrel.